Hello, we are going to be looking at language exercise 2 for elementary Greek from Grand Canyon Theological Seminary. That is Greek 501. And if you have not already seen my video on declensions and inflections, I recommend that you look at that first. And that is located on YouTube. If you have not already seen my playlist, GCU Elementary Greek in Accordance, then go to YouTube and type in the YouTube search bar Andrew McClurg Elementary Greek, and you should come up pretty close to the top. If not the top, you'll find this playlist called GCU Elementary Greek in Accordance. The video title you're looking for is Nouns Introduction, Inflection, and Declension. So look for that video. I recommend looking at it first before you look at this video. Now the textbook we're using is Mounce's textbook. I've got the bibliography here. It's William D. Mounce, Basics of Biblical Greek Grammar, the 3rd edition, and it's Zondervan. So that's the reference for the textbook. Now let's move on and look at the language exercise itself. So the language exercise 2 has a list of words to parse. I recommend first that we go down and fill in the chart of definite articles. We have this chart of definite articles, and we can fill this in by going to the textbook. We have the masculine definite article paradigm, feminine definite article paradigm, the neuter definite article paradigm. So we'll go to the textbook, and we're on page 46 of the textbook here. Here are the definite articles. And we have the masculines in this column, the feminines in this column, and the neuters in this column. And then we have nominative singular, genitive singular, dative singular, accusative singular, and then we have the plurals of all of those. The first set we're going to fill in are the masculines for the nominative and the accusative. So this week we are focusing on nominative and accusative. So for our chart, we're going to be looking at nominative singular, accusative singular, nominative plural, and accusative plural. Next week we will be looking at the other main cases, genitive and dative, but this week we're focusing on nominative and accusative. So we want to fill in the masculines. So we have the nominative singular is ha. Notice the rough breathing mark, ha. And the accusative singular is ton. The nominative plural is hoi. Again, the rough breathing mark. The accusative plural is tous. So we're going to fill the masculines in here. So we have nominative singular, and that would be in Greek, the transliteration would be ha. The H is the equivalent of the rough breathing mark, makes that ha sound. If I were going to do this in Greek, I would do that as ha. The accusative singular is ton. The English transliteration for that would be ton. The Greek would be tau, omicron with an acute accent, and then nu. So ton. Over to the plurals, we will have the nominative. We saw that from our chart now. These are our plurals, nominative plural and accusative plural. So the nominative plural is going to be hoi. Hoi. That's our English transliteration. And then in Greek, that would be omicron and then the iota with a rough breathing mark. There we go. I'm sorry, rough breathing mark. That was a smooth. The rough breathing mark, the curve faces to the right. So hoi. And then the accusative plural is going to be tous. So in English, that would be tous. And in Greek, that would be tau, omicron, the acute accent, to the upsilon, and then the final sigma. Whoops, final sigma. There we go. Tous. So that's our masculine definite article chart. We'll come down here to feminine definite article. We're going to come over to our chart and look at the feminines. Again, we're looking at the nominative singular and accusative singular, and then the nominative plural and the accusative plural. So let's fill in our chart. Come over to the nominative singular, and that was a hay. In English, that would be, an English transliteration would be hay, and technically if you wanted to make that the eta, you would make it an E with a line over it, but for our purposes we can just say HE. It's not too difficult to find an E with a line over it, but you have to go to the insert menu. It's a little more complicated. And in Greek, we'll switch over to the Greek keyboard, and that would be an eta with a rough breathing mark. So that would be eta with that rough breathing mark. That's hay. Let's come down and look at the accusative feminine singular here. So that is going to be tain, and that's an eta. So we could put a E with a line over it in there, tain, but for our purposes, tain is okay. And then in the Greek, that would be tau, eta, nu. So tain is our accusative feminine singular. We can see that on our chart here under, again on page 46, and we see that right here, tain. So feminine and then accusative singular. We'll come down and pick up our nominative plural. So feminine, nominative plural, that's going to be high. So that is our alpha iota with a rough breathing mark. So up here under nominative, we'll say, it's back to English, high. In Greek, that will be alpha and then iota with a rough breathing mark, so high. And then finally our accusative feminine plural. We have our feminine and then we have accusative plural. So that is tas, tau alpha sigma. So English transliteration tas, and in Greek that will be tas, final sigma, tas. So that is our feminine definite article paradigm. I will leave you to do the neuter definite article paradigm, and we're only looking at nominative and accusative again, and you'll be able to find that on your definite article chart under the neuter column, similar to how we did the masculine and feminine definite articles. So let's go back up and look at our parsing now. We have a number of vocabulary words. Now we know up front that this week we are only looking at nominative and accusative. So all our examples are going to be nominative and accusative. And also we're only looking at first and second declension, so that we know that all our nouns are going to be first and second declension. But I'm going to go through looking these up so we can determine their declension and then their inflection, meaning the case, number, gender. Even though we already know their first or second declension, even though we already know that they're nominative or accusative, just because that's what we're looking at this week, I'm going to go through the process of figuring out the declension and then the gender and then the case and the number. So here we have basileas. Basileas. It takes a little experience to figure out what the stem of these words are. I'm looking at basile, and that's the stem here. So we have the B-A-S-I-L-E-I. I'm saying it in English, it's easier to say it, but beta, alpha, sigma, iota, lambda, epsilon, iota. That's our stem. The way to learn these stems is to come down to the full paradigm. This is on page 47 of Mounts. Come down to the full paradigm. And notice that as, u, o, on. And also for feminine, we'll have eta, a, or alpha, a. So you'll get used to the endings. And once we know what the endings are, we can figure out what the stems are. So the stem over here we're looking at is basile. Now we want to go to our lexicon. Our lexicon is found on page 394. Page 394 gives you the various abbreviations and conventions of this lexicon. The actual entries start on page 395. And we're looking for basileia. So here we have alpha. We're looking for beta. That's the second letter in the alphabet. Alpha, beta. And so we're looking down here for, here's beta. And so we're looking for beta, alpha, sigma, BAS. And here we go. We have two potentials here. We have, well, three maybe. We have basile as a stem, basilu, and then we have basilu. Oh, that's a verb. So we have, here's our word, basileia. This is the lexical form. This would be the nominative singular form. Now, the information we have here, as I mentioned in previous video, we have the lexical form, we have the genitive ending, and we also have the definite article that tells us the gender. Now, this lexicon is friendly because it tells you already that it's first declension. So it's a noun, and it tells you the one tells you it's first declension. Not all lexicons do that. So let's work out the declension, pretending that that information is not there. So the lexical form ends in alpha. We said that if the lexical form ends in alpha or eta, it is most likely first declension. Generally, when we have first declension, the genitive will either be alpha sigma or eta sigma, as or ace. And here the hey tells us that we have a feminine definite article, and so we have a feminine. So let's go back in. We can fill in the gender. That's feminine. Whoops, go back to an English keyboard. That's feminine. And we know the lexical form is basileia. So we can fill in the lexical form. And I can actually just do that by taking only that part of that word out, copying it, and pasting it over here. In English, I could type that in as basileia. There's my lexical form. I got that directly from the lexicon. Now we need to parse this. So we're going to go back and look at our ending. We have an alpha sigma as our ending. So we'll go back to our chart on page 47 of the textbook, and we're looking for alpha sigma. Well, here we find it here in the feminine column under genitive singular. We also find it down here under accusative plural. Next week, when we're looking at genitives and datives, we'll need to also see whether it could possibly be a genitive singular if we have a noun that has a nominative that ends in alpha, which actually we do here. So our noun ends in alpha. So technically we could have a genitive singular, but we're not going to worry about that this week. So we're only going to look at the accusative plural. Come over here. Our case is accusative, meaning it's the object of a verb or perhaps the object of a preposition. And we saw that it was plural. Remember, it's accusative plural. Here's our ending. Accusative plural row. And so our number is plural. And so now we have the full parsing here. We know that it's accusative. We know it's feminine. We know that it's plural. And our translation, go back over to our lexicon, we see that our meaning here is kingdom. But Notice that it's a plural. So our translation here is kingdoms. We have a plural word, and so a plural word will be plural, kingdoms. Notice the translation is not kingdom, it's kingdoms. You have to translate based on the case and the number. In this case, it's accusative, so it would be something like, the Lord has established the kingdoms. The direct object of a sentence, it would be kingdoms. All right, so let's look at the next example, ergon. So it looks like our stem is ERG, or epsilon rho gamma, and here's our ending, omicron nu. We will go and look in the lexicon. Let's go back over to the lexicon here. We're looking for the epsilon. We're at beta. We need to go down to alpha, beta, gamma. Delta, epsilon will be after that. So there's delta and finally epsilon. And we're looking for epsilon rho. Rho's near the end of the alphabet, so we have to kind of kappa. We need to look down farther for rho. It's past P. Get down, and here we go. So here is ergon. Notice that we've found the nominative singular form, which is actually the same as what we were looking at, so it kind of helps us. Notice that the ending is omicron nu. We said that omicron nu or omicron sigma, if that's the ending of the lexical form, the nominative singular, and we have the genitive ending, which is our next piece of information, if that is omicron upsilon, we're likely looking at second declension. So we know we have second declension. Then we know from the article that we're looking at neuter. So this is a neuter singular definite article. So we know that we have a neuter gender. It is second declension. And we know that the lexical form is ergon. So let's come back over here, and we notice that the gender is neuter. The lexical form is ergon, so we can just copy and paste that over. Now we need to parse it, because even though we know that it is nominative singular, we need to look and see, because the neuters are interesting. Come back over to our chart. Remember that the neuter nominative singular form and the accusative singular form are the same. So it helps to go to our chart. So we know that we have nominative singular. Actually, we have the same word here in the chart. That's helpful. So we have ergon is nominative singular. Ergon is also accusative singular. So this could be either one. So we have, it could be nominative singular, and I'll just put an S there now for singular. It could also be accusative singular. The gender will be the same in either case, so it'll be neuter, nominative singular, or accusative singular. And the translation is going to be, since it's singular, nominative would be work, and that would be the subject of a sentence, such as work is good, something like that. And then the accusative would be the direct object, so it would be something like he does work. So it would also be work. And so the translation would be the same in either case. I found the base translation in the lexicon, and then I have to look and check out the case and number so I can figure out what the actual translation is in this instance. Since it's singular, it will just be work. And since it's nominative or accusative, there's nothing else added to it. It's just work, subject of a sentence, work, direct object of a verb. Okay, let's go and look at theon. Theon. So it looks like my stem here is the. It's a theta epsilon. I'm going to go to my lexicon, and I need to go beyond epsilon. So I'm going to go to zeta, eta, and then finally theta. Here we go, theta. I'm looking for theta epsilon. So I've got to come down alpha. Here's epsilon, 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 epsilon omicron. Here we go. Here's theos. It looks like there are no other possibilities. So this is our lexical form. It ends with omicron sigma, and the genitive form is omicron upsilon, oo. Over here we can tell it's second declension, but pretend that that's not there. The omicron sigma ending of the lexical form, the nominative singular, and the omicron upsilon genitive tell us we have second declension. The definite article is ha. That tells us that we have masculine. This is our nominative masculine singular definite article. So that tells us we have masculine. So we can go back over to our chart. We can fill in the gender is masculine. And we saw that the lexical form is theos. So come over here. Actually, I can just copy the first part of that, paste it over here. Whoops, wrong column. Paste it over here under lexical form, and then I can add a final sigma. The English would just be theos, like that. Now we need to parse it. So we're going to come back over here. We see the ending on. So we have to come over to our chart on page 47. We know it's masculine, so we need to look in the masculine column here. So we're going to come down and we're going to be looking for, there it is, omicron nu, on. There's our on ending. There's nothing else in the masculine column that has that ending. So we know that we have accusative singular. So it's masculine accusative singular. So our case is accusative. Our number is singular. We noticed this before, but our translation is capital G God or little g God. We need to look and see if it's singular. Since it happens to be singular, we'll be looking at capital G God or little g God. Note that if it was plural, we would probably say it was gods, little g gods. But since it's singular, we can say it's God or a God, little g God. Context will tell us that. Let's do one more here. We'll do anthropos. Anthropos. Notice my accent is on this syllable here, so anthropos. So it looks like our stem is going to be anthrop. We have the us ending. We need to go back to our lexicon and go on back up to alpha. So there is alpha, alpha nu, here we go. Alpha nu theta, here's our stem, and we have a omicron sigma ending, so anthropos. Notice in this case the accent is on the first syllable, so we have anthropos. The ending is omicron sigma. The genitive ending is omicron upsilon. That tells us that we likely have second declension, and we can verify that over here. Yep, it's second declension. Not all lexicons tell you that, so it's good to do it the old-fashioned way, which is to look at the nominative ending and then the genitive ending. We see that the definite article here for the nominative singular is masculine. So we have our lexical form, anthropos. We have our gender, which is masculine, and we know that it can take several meanings: man, mankind, person. In the plural, it would be people. Note that this is the basic definition. We can't figure out the translation until we also look at the case and the number. So don't translate directly from your dictionary or your lexicon. This gives you the base. Then you have to go back and check out your case and number before you can translate. So here's anthropos. We saw that this is masculine. We can figure out the lexical form, and actually We can type this in over here. In Greek, this is going to be anthropos. I'm sorry, anthropos. There we go. Anthropos, that's the lexical form. In English, we can just type in anthropos like that. And before we do the translation, we have to parse it. So we need to look at this ending. We have this us ending, O-U-S, or omicron, upsilon, sigma ending. So we can come back over to our chart on page 47, looking for the masculine column and the omicron, upsilon, sigma ending. The only place we see that in the masculine column is down here at accusative plural. So we know we have a case, accusative, the number is plural. So the plural and the accusative tell us. The accusative tells us that it's the object of a verb, the direct object. So it could be something like God has saved men, or God has saved people. So it will be plural in translation, and it will serve as the direct object of a verb, or possibly a preposition that takes accusative. So it could be something like the preposition ace means to or unto, so unto men or unto people. But notice that the plural says that it has to be a plural. Okay, I will leave the rest for you. Notice that down here we have anthropoi, and so the stem is the same as the one we just did, but it has a different ending. So you're going to need to go and look up the ending. You're going to need to look for that omicron iota ending, and that will help you then to parse that word. Here we have cardion. You will need to look up cardi in your lexicon, and then note this ending. This is going to be very similar to basileos here. So in terms of its gender and declension, that A often tells you, in the ending, often tells you you're looking at feminine. Not always, but it's a good indicator. And since I already know this vocabulary, I can already know that it's feminine. But you go ahead and look that up for yourself, and you'll figure that out in the dictionary. Okay, let's go down now and look at a few of these translations down in the final part of the language exercise. So here we have ha lagos. Now you should be able to find these words in your vocabulary lists, but if not, you can look them up in the lexicon. So ha lagos, here's a definite article, a nominative masculine singular definite article. In the absence of any other information, we will typically just translate that as the. So we'll have the something. Logos is your word for word. It can also mean message, it can mean a few other things, but the base translation will just be word. It's the word that we see in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. We see halagos. So it's a very important word, obviously. We would translate that as the plus word, nominative. Let's look at the second one here, ton kosmon. This is an accusative definite article. It is a masculine singular accusative definite article. And that tells us that our noun is also accusative masculine singular. If you have a definite article, you don't have to bother parsing the word because the definite article gives you the parsing. The definite article will always agree with the word that comes after it in case, number, and gender. So definite article is your friend. If we did parse it, we would also find that it is accusative masculine singular. So kosmon, well, we looked that up. It's in our vocabulary. It is world, appearance sometimes. It refers to the world of mankind, the world of men. So we have the world here. Another example, you can look up angelos. Let's look up tas basileas. So we parsed basileas, remember, up here, and it looks like it's the same form. So tas is our definite article, and if we look at our definite article chart, we would find that that is accusative feminine plural. We would have the, and then basileia in its base meaning is kingdom, but here we have plural, so we have kingdoms. Remember, you always have to translate based on the case and the number. And since the case here is accusative, it would be something like God will establish the kingdoms. It is the direct object of a verb. It could also be the object of a preposition that takes an accusative object. We'll be learning about prepositions in a few weeks. So for instance, the preposition ace. Ace can mean several things. It means to, with respect to, at. So ace tas basileas would be to the kingdoms. So our translation here is the kingdoms. I haven't filled in the transliterations here. In reality, transliterations are good to learn at the beginning, but I don't emphasize them. They're not super important after you learn how to do them. And I don't even pay much attention to them after a while. So this would be ha, logos. This would be ton, cosmon. This would be tas, basileas. If I could type. Again, once you learn them, they're useful, for instance, when you read a commentary that doesn't have Greek fonts. But once you learn the Greek, the transliterations are less important. Okay, I'll leave the rest of these for you to do. There's only one of these that does not have a definite article. That's down here, apostoloi. So when you translate, you will not put a the there. So no the. One last thing to notice here is this looks a little bit strange. This looks like an English capital H. It is a capital eta. So it's the vowel eta. Note that it has a rough breathing mark on it as well. And this is the equivalent of the Greek small letter eta with a rough breathing mark. And so it's the definite article, the nominative feminine singular definite article. So they are the same letter, but this could be confusing if you're not familiar with capital letters. Okay, that's some help, I hope, with language exercise 2. And I hope you have some fun with this and it's not just a total drag. All this work will pay off when we begin to look at the New Testament and begin to make sense of it.